The warning sirens wailed across the bridge of the UES Odyssey, bathing the command center in flashing crimson light. Captain Dominic Reed gripped the edges of his console, his knuckles white as he scanned the emergency reports flooding his screens. "Status report," he demanded, his voice carrying the weight of command despite the chaos erupting around him. Lieutenant Fiona Cassidy responded without looking up from her station. "Sir, we've detected multiple hegemony vessels entering the system. They appear to be conducting a sweep and purge operation on the fourth planet." Dominic's jaw tightened. The hegemony, a collective of ruthless species that had been methodically cleansing what they deemed lesser beings from this sector for decades. Humanity's standing orders were clear: observe, document, but never interfere. Earth couldn't risk open conflict with a force that vastly outmatched their military capabilities. "Magnify the surface scans," Dominic ordered, his steel-gray eyes narrowing at the tactical display. The holographic projection expanded, revealing the verdant surface of Proxima Centauri 4, a lush, untamed world that Dominic's science team had been covertly studying for months. Red indicators flashed across its surface, marking hegemony weapon signatures. "They're targeting something specific," observed Commander Javier Ortega, the ship's tactical officer. "Pattern suggests they're hunting rather than conducting a general purge." Dominic leaned forward, studying the movement patterns. "What species inhabits that region?" Dr. Olivia Winters, the ship's xenobiologist, stepped forward. Her usual composed demeanor was replaced with barely contained distress. "The Vexillians, sir. An ancient, pacifistic species with remarkable telepathic abilities. They're practically defenseless against this kind of assault." Dominic's fist clenched involuntarily. The Vexillians were precisely the kind of civilization his team had been assigned to study, advanced in ways that defied human understanding, yet technologically limited in terms of weapons and defense systems. "Sir," Cassidy's voice cut through his thoughts. "The hegemony vessels are departing the system. They're leaving." "So quickly?" Dominic frowned. "Scan for survivors." The bridge fell silent as the sensors worked. Cassidy's face paled as she studied the readouts. "Life signs are nearly non-existent, sir. We're detecting scattered readings, but they're fading rapidly." "They exterminated an entire species in less than an hour," Ortega whispered, horror evident in his voice. Dominic stood abruptly. "Prepare a shuttle. I'm leading a reconnaissance team to the surface." Dr. Winters stepped forward. "Captain, Admiralty directives explicitly forbid." "I'm aware of the directives, Doctor," Dominic cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. "But I won't sit here and document an extinction event without at least trying to understand what happened." The shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Proxima Centauri 4, navigating through thick plumes of smoke rising from the devastated landscape below. What had once been a thriving ecosystem now resembled a war zone: charred vegetation, smoldering craters, and the unmistakable silence of mass death. Dominic led his team through the ruins of what appeared to be a major Vexillian settlement. The architecture was unlike anything human eyes had ever documented, structures that seemed to merge seamlessly with the natural environment, built not to conquer nature but to exist in harmony with it. "Life signs?" Dominic asked, his voice hushed as if speaking too loudly might disturb the dead. Lieutenant Cassidy consulted her scanner, face grim. "Nothing substantial, sir." "Wait," she paused, adjusting her equipment. "I'm detecting a faint biosignature approximately 300 meters northeast. It's fading rapidly." Without hesitation, Dominic changed direction, quickening his pace. "Let's move." They found her in what appeared to be a sanctuary of some kind, a structure less damaged than the surrounding area. The Vexillian female lay sprawled across an ornate floor, her body battered and broken. Her skin, a luminescent blue-violet, was marred with wounds that leaked a silvery substance that Dominic assumed was blood. Dr. Winters immediately knelt beside the fallen alien, medical scanner in hand. "She's alive, but barely." Multiple internal injuries, severe trauma to what I believe is their equivalent of a cardiovascular system. Dominic stared down at the Vexillion, struck by the otherworldly beauty even in her devastated state. Her features were delicately humanoid, yet distinctly alien, large, almond-shaped eyes, currently closed, a slender frame that seemed almost fragile, and most remarkably, tendrils that resembled hair but appeared to be semi-transparent, floating around her head as if suspended in water. "Can you help her?" Dominic asked quietly. Dr. Winters hesitated. "Captain, I must remind you that intervention protocols." "I didn't ask about protocols, Doctor. I asked if you could help her." The xenobiologist met his gaze, conflict evident in her expression. "Possibly. But we'd need to transport her back to the Odyssey. Our medical facilities here are limited." Dominic made his decision without further deliberation. "Prepare her for transport." "Sir," Ortega stepped forward, his voice low. "This directly violates at least 7 Admiralty directives. We'd be risking court-martial, or worse." "Noted, Commander." Dominic's tone was even, but his eyes reflected a steel resolve. "And if anyone wishes to formally object, I'll note it in the mission log. But I'm not leaving the last survivor of an entire species to die alone on a charred world." No one spoke as they carefully moved the Vexillion onto a stretcher. As they lifted her, the alien's eyes suddenly fluttered open, revealing irises of the deepest violet, with pupils that resembled fractured crystals. Her gaze locked onto Dominic's, and he felt a sudden, inexplicable pressure in his mind, a presence, alien yet somehow familiar, reaching out in desperation. Images flooded his consciousness, the Vexillian civilization in its prime, the sudden arrival of the hegemony fleet, the systematic slaughter that followed. The final image was the most haunting, a massive chamber filled with what appeared to be eggs or embryos, destroyed by hegemony weapons. The connection broke as quickly as it had formed, leaving Dominic gasping. The Vexillion's eyes closed once more, but he understood what she had shown him. This wasn't a random act of violence, it was a calculated genocide. Back aboard the Odyssey, Dominic stood before the ship's assembled senior officers in the conference room. The tension was palpable as he outlined what he had done and what he planned to do next. The Vexillion, who Dr. Winters has tentatively identified as a high priestess or similar authority figure, remains in critical condition in our medical bay, he stated formally. "I've instructed our medical team to do everything possible to save her life." Commander Ortega leaned forward. "Captain, with all due respect, we need to contact Earth Command immediately. This situation goes beyond our authority to manage." "I agree, Commander." Dominic nodded. "Which is why I've already recorded a full report for transmission to Admiral Blackwood. However, I've made it clear that we're proceeding with medical intervention regardless of their response." A murmur passed through the assembled officers. Dominic raised a hand for silence. "I understand the position I've put each of you in," he continued solemnly. "So I want to be absolutely clear, the decision was mine alone. Anyone who wishes to formally distance themselves from my actions may do so without prejudice." The silence that followed was telling. Not a single officer moved. Dr. Winters cleared her throat. "Captain, there's something else you should know. Initial scans of the Vexillion's physiology suggest something remarkable. Her cellular structure appears to have regenerative properties unlike anything we've ever encountered. If we can stabilize her condition, she might not only survive but potentially help us understand technologies that could revolutionize human medicine." Dominic nodded thoughtfully. "That's a secondary consideration, Doctor. Our primary objective remains humanitarian." The ship's communications officer, Lieutenant Harrison, suddenly straightened in her chair, pressing a hand to her earpiece. "Sir, we're receiving an encrypted transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Dominic felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "Put it through to my private terminal. This meeting is adjourned for now." As the officers filed out, Dominic caught Ortega by the arm. "Javier, I need you to understand something. Whatever orders come through that transmission, I have no intention of abandoning that being to die or to be treated as an experimental subject. Ortega studied him for a long moment. This isn't like you, Dom. You've always been by the book. Maybe the book is wrong this time. Dominic released his grip. Sometimes following orders means betraying everything those orders are supposed to protect. Alone in his quarters, Dominic opened the encrypted transmission. Admiral Blackwood's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Captain Reed, your report has been received and reviewed. Your actions constitute a direct violation of non-intervention protocols. You are hereby ordered to terminate all medical treatment of the alien entity and prepare it for transfer to Earth Science Division upon your return. Furthermore, you are relieved of command, effective immediately. Commander Ortega will assume temporary. Dominic shut off the transmission, his decision already made. The path ahead was clear, even if it meant the end of everything he had worked for. In the medical bay, he stood over the unconscious form of the last Vexillian, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. What had begun as a rescue mission had become something more, something that would change the course of his life and perhaps the relationship between humanity and the stars forever. I don't know if you can hear me, he whispered to the alien being, but I promise you this, you will not be the last of your kind. Not if I have anything to say about it. Commander Ortega found Captain Dominic Reed exactly where he expected, in the medical bay, seated beside the recovering Vexillian. It had been 3 standard Earth days since they had defied direct orders from Admiral Blackwood, and the atmosphere aboard the UES Odyssey had grown increasingly tense. Dom, Ortega said quietly, stepping into the sterile room. We need to talk. Dominic looked up, the dark circles under his eyes testament to his sleepless vigil. Status update. Earth Command has dispatched the UES Valiant to intercept us. Admiral Zhou himself is aboard. They'll reach our position in approximately 36 hours. Ortega handed over a data pad containing the transmission details. They're demanding we power down and prepare for boarding. Dominic nodded, unsurprised. And the crew? Standing by you, for now. But they deserve to know what you're planning. Before Dominic could respond, a soft, melodic sound emanated from the biobed. The Vexillian was awake, her crystalline eyes focused intently on him. The medical monitoring equipment registered a spike in neural activity. Dr. Winters hurried over, scanner in hand. This is remarkable. Her recovery rate has accelerated exponentially in the past few hours. Captain, I believe she's trying to communicate. Dominic moved closer, feeling that now familiar pressure against his consciousness, the telepathic touch he had experienced on the planet's surface. This time, however, it was controlled, deliberate. You saved me, a voice resonated in his mind, feminine and musical yet unmistakably alien. Why? Dominic hesitated, uncertain how to respond to a telepathic query. Just think your response, Dr. Winters advised, monitoring the neural interface readings. Her species communicates primarily through directed thought patterns. Because it was right, Dominic thought back, focusing his mind on the Vexillian. No sentient being deserves to be exterminated. The alien's expression shifted subtly, her luminescent skin pulsing slightly with what might have been emotion. I am Thera, last guardian of the Vexillian seed vault. My people, they are truly gone. Dominic's heart clenched at the profound sorrow and dignity in her query. I'm sorry. We found no other survivors. Thera closed her eyes, a single silver tear tracking down her face. Then I carry the final legacy of an ancient race. I must live, Captain Dominic Reed. Not just for myself, but for all who came before me. How does she know my name? Dominic whispered to Dr. Winters. Telepathic species often acquire language and personal information during mental contact, the doctor explained. She's likely absorbed a significant amount of data from your mind during your interactions. Ortega cleared his throat. Captain, we still have a situation to address. The Valiant. I know, Javier. Dominic stood, his decision crystallizing. Call the senior staff to the tactical room. We need to determine our next move. As they turned to leave, Thora's voice once again resonated in Dominic's mind. You risk much for me, human. Your superiors disapprove of my rescue. Dominic paused at the door. Some things are worth risking everything for. The tactical meeting was brief and to the point. Dominic laid out their options with unflinching honesty: surrender to Admiral Zhou and hand over Thora to Earth Science Division, where she would likely become a research specimen, or defy direct orders and face the consequences. I won't command anyone to follow me into insubordination, he concluded. Each of you must decide for yourselves. Lieutenant Cassidy was the first to speak. Sir, with all due respect, if we surrender the last Vexillion to ESD, we're no better than the hegemony. Different methods, same result, treating a sentient being as an object to be used. One by one, the senior officers voiced their support. Even Ortega, despite his initial reservations, stood firmly with his captain. The Odyssey stands with you, sir. All of us. Dominic felt a swell of pride in his crew. Then we need a plan. The Valiant outguns us significantly, and Admiral Zhou isn't known for his patience or compassion. What about the uncharted passage through the Scylla Nebula, suggested Lieutenant Harrison, bringing up a star chart. It's treacherous, but the Odyssey's maneuverability gives us an advantage over a battlecruiser like the Valiant. Dominic studied the proposed route. It could work. Plot the course. We leave in 2 hours. Later, Dominic returned to the medical bay to find Thora sitting upright, conversing telepathically with Dr. Winters. The Vexillion's recovery had progressed remarkably, her luminescent skin now glowing with vitality. Captain, Thora acknowledged him, her mental voice stronger than before. Your physician has been explaining your plan. You would become an exile from your own kind for my sake. Not exactly, Dominic replied aloud, finding it easier to speak than to focus his thoughts. We're buying time to find a diplomatic solution. Earth's leadership needs to understand what happened to your people, and what might happen to humanity if the hegemony continues unchecked. Thora rose gracefully from the bio-bed, her movements fluid and ethereal. Standing at full height, she was nearly as tall as Dominic, her slender form radiating a subtle energy that made the air around her seem to shimmer. Then I must show you something, she responded, extending a hand toward him. Something I have shared with no outsider. Dominic hesitated, then accepted her offered hand. The mental connection between them intensified instantly, flooding his mind with images and sensations far more vivid than before. He saw, through Thora's memories, the true extent of what had been lost. The Vexillions were an ancient race, having achieved enlightenment while humans were still discovering fire. Their civilization was built not on conquest or resource accumulation, but on a profound understanding of life itself. They had mastered technologies that human science could barely comprehend: cellular regeneration, consciousness transfer, sustainable energy generation that drew power from the fabric of spacetime itself. And most crucially, he saw the seed vault, a repository containing the genetic material of every Vexillion who had ever lived, preserved in a state of suspended animation. It still exists, Thora's voice resonated through the vision. Hidden beneath the surface, in chambers the hegemony failed to discover. With it, my people can be reborn, but I cannot do it alone. The connection faded, leaving Dominic breathless and disoriented. You can resurrect your entire species? Not alone, she repeated, her crystalline eyes locked with his. The process requires specific technologies and resources I no longer have access to. I need allies, Captain, allies with courage and conviction. Allies like you. Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition of kindred spirits despite their vast biological differences. Dominic felt drawn to her wisdom, her resilience, her quiet dignity in the face of unimaginable loss. The Odyssey and her crew are at your disposal, he promised. It is not just your ship I need, Dominic Reed, Thora responded, a new intensity in her mental voice. It is you, your insight, your determination, your humanity. For the first time since their encounter, Thera initiated physical contact beyond necessity, her fingertips brushing lightly against his face. The sensation was electric, sending a shiver of connection through Dominic that transcended the physical. "Captain to the bridge," Lieutenant Harrison's voice cut through the intercom, breaking the moment. "We're approaching the Scylla Nebula." The journey through the nebula proved even more perilous than anticipated. Cosmic storms battered the Odyssey, while gravitational anomalies threatened to tear the ship apart. At Thera's suggestion, they modified the shield harmonics to resonate with the nebula's unique energy signature, providing additional protection. Working side by side through the crisis, Dominic and Thera developed a synchronicity that the crew couldn't help but notice. They anticipated each other's thoughts, completed each other's sentences, moved in a dance of perfect coordination. What had begun as respect was evolving into something deeper, a connection that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Winters observed this development with scientific curiosity. "The neurological compatibility between you two is unprecedented," she remarked during a private moment with Dominic. "Her telepathic field has adapted specifically to your brainwave patterns. It's almost as if..." "As if what, Doctor?" Dominic prompted when she hesitated. "As if your minds were made to connect," she finished quietly. "I've been studying Vexillian physiology from the data Thera has shared. Their species forms lifelong telepathic bonds, usually with a single chosen partner. Captain. I believe she's bonding with you." The implications of this revelation left Dominic reeling. A bond between species had never been documented, let alone one so profound, so intimate. That night, unable to sleep, Dominic found himself drawn to the observation deck. The swirling colors of the nebula created an otherworldly tableau against the viewport. He was unsurprised when Thera appeared beside him, her luminescence complementing the cosmic display outside. "You are troubled," she observed, not a question but a statement of fact. "Dr. Winters told me about the bonding process," Dominic replied directly. "Is it true? Are you forming a life bond with me?" Thera's gaze remained fixed on the nebula. It was not intentional. Such bonds cannot be forced or manufactured, they simply are or are not. I did not expect to find such compatibility with a human. And what does this bond mean, exactly? Among my people, it would signify a union of equals, a sharing of mind, spirit, and purpose that transcends all other connections. She turned to face him fully. "Does this disturb you, Dominic Reed?" He considered the question carefully. "Not disturbed. Overwhelmed, perhaps. In all of human history, we've never encountered anything like this. Then perhaps it is time for human history to embrace new possibilities," Thera suggested, her mental voice carrying an emotion Dominic hadn't detected from her before, hope, tinged with an unmistakable affection. As they stood together, watching the cosmic ballet outside, Dominic realized his life had changed irrevocably. The connection he felt with Thera defied logic, transcended species, and challenged everything he had been taught about the universe and humanity's place within it. Beyond the nebula lay uncertainty. Admiral Zhou and the Valiant would eventually find them, and Earth Command would demand answers. But in this moment, on the precipice of something profound and unprecedented, Dominic Reed knew he had made the right choice on that devastated planet. Some connections were worth risking everything for. Part 3, Defiance of Worlds. The Odyssey emerged from the Scylla Nebula into uncharted space, its hull scarred by the passage but its crew intact. Captain Dominic Reed studied the unfamiliar star patterns on the navigation display, trying to determine their best course. "The nebula's gravitational fluctuations pushed us off our projected trajectory," Lieutenant Cassidy reported. "We're approximately 12 light-years from the nearest charted Federation outpost." Dominic nodded. "That gives us some breathing room. Any sign of pursuit?" "Negative, sir. The nebula's interference is masking our trail. However, I wouldn't count on that advantage lasting more than a few days." Commander Ortega stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Dom, we need to discuss our next move." The crew is behind you, but we can't run forever. Before Dominic could respond, Thera entered the bridge. Her presence immediately commanded attention, not just because of her alien appearance, but because of the quiet authority she projected. The crew had quickly grown accustomed to her presence among them, many finding her telepathic communication more efficient than traditional methods. There is another option, she suggested, addressing both Dominic and Ortega. My people maintained hidden outposts throughout this sector, sanctuaries designed to be undetectable to other species. The nearest is only 3 days from our current position. Dominic considered this. A safe harbor would give us time to formulate a proper strategy. More than that, Thera continued. These outposts contain technologies that might help us access the seed vault safely. And the outpost's communication array could allow us to bypass your military command structure and speak directly to your civilian leadership. The decision was unanimous, they would make for the Vexilian outpost. As the Odyssey changed course, Dominic couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in his connection with Thera. What had begun as discrete telepathic exchanges had evolved into something more fluid, a constant awareness of each other's presence and emotions. Dr. Winters monitored these developments with professional interest. The neurological entanglement is strengthening, she explained during her daily report. Your brainwave patterns are beginning to harmonize with hers during periods of close proximity. Is it dangerous? Dominic asked, though he already knew he wouldn't terminate the connection even if it was. Quite the contrary. Your overall neural efficiency has improved by 17%. You're processing information faster, requiring less sleep, and showing enhanced intuitive reasoning. If anything, the bond appears beneficial to human physiology. That evening, Dominic and Thera shared a meal in his private quarters, a quiet ritual they had established over the past few days. She had no need for human food, sustaining herself through a process she described as energy synthesis, but she enjoyed the social aspects of dining together. Your Dr. Winters is fascinated by our bond, Thera observed, her mental voice carrying a note of amusement. She's a scientist. Unprecedented phenomena are her lifeblood. Dominic smiled. I can't blame her curiosity. What's happening between us defies everything we thought we knew about interspecies relations. Thera's expression grew thoughtful. Among my people, such bonds were considered sacred, not just a connection between individuals, but a joining of cosmic energies. The fact that it can form between our species suggests a deeper universal truth about consciousness itself. That we're not as different as we appear. That perhaps the universe itself yearns for connection across the artificial boundaries we create. Thera extended her hand across the table, an invitation Dominic accepted without hesitation. The contact deepened their connection instantly, and Dominic felt a rush of emotions that weren't entirely his own, wonder, gratitude, and something more intense that defied simple categorization. It wasn't merely affection or attraction, but a recognition of complementary energies, of two beings who somehow made each other more complete. Thera, he began, struggling to frame his thoughts into words. I need to understand what this means for both of us. On Earth, relationships between commanding officers and, well, anyone under their protection, it's complicated. In my culture, bonds form where they will, without regard for status or circumstance, she replied. The universe has its own wisdom in such matters. Their moment of connection was interrupted by the ship's alert system. Captain to the bridge, Lieutenant Harrison's voice came through the intercom. We've detected an unidentified vessel on an intercept course. The unidentified vessel proved to be a hegemony scout ship, smaller than their military cruisers but still heavily armed and clearly designed for pursuit. It had detected the Odyssey despite their stealth protocols and was closing rapidly. They must have been patrolling the nebula exit points, Ortega theorized grimly. Waiting for us to emerge. Dominic assessed their options quickly. We can't outrun them, and we can't outgun them. Tactical, what's our status? Shields at maximum, weapons hot, Lieutenant Cassidy reported. But sir, their technology is significantly advanced. Our simulations suggest our conventional weapons would be largely ineffective against their defenses. Thera stepped forward, her expression resolute. There is another option. The Vexilian outpost I mentioned, it's equipped with a planetary defense system designed to repel hegemony attacks. If we can reach it before they overtake us. How far? Dominic demanded. Less than 6 hours at maximum warp. Dominic made his decision instantly. Lieutenant Cassidy, set course for the outpost, maximum warp. Engineering, I need everything you can give us. The chase that followed pushed the Odyssey to its structural limits. The hegemony vessel fired repeatedly, each shot degrading their shields further. Engineering teams worked frantically to maintain warp integrity as the ship shuddered under the assault. In the final approach to the outpost, a small, apparently barren moon orbiting a gas giant, their shields failed completely. A direct hit to their starboard nacelle sent the ship spinning out of control, emergency systems blaring as they tumbled toward the moon's surface. Brace for impact. Dominic shouted, gripping his command chair. The crash landing was brutal but survivable, the Odyssey's reinforced hull preventing catastrophic decompression as they skidded across the lunar surface. When the ship finally came to rest, nearly half the systems were offline, including weapons and propulsion. Status report, Dominic demanded, helping a fallen crew member back to their station. Multiple injuries reported throughout the ship, but no fatalities, Ortega confirmed. Primary power is offline. We're running on emergency reserves. The hegemony vessel. Landing approximately 2 kilometers east of our position. They're deploying ground forces. Dominic turned to Thera, who stood calmly amid the chaos. You said this outpost has defenses. How do we activate them? Follow me, she responded, already moving toward the emergency exit hatch. The outpost entrance is not far from our crash site. Dominic assembled a small team, himself, Ortega, Dr. Winters, and 2 security officers. As they emerged onto the lunar surface, the desolate landscape revealed no obvious signs of civilization. The atmosphere was thin but breathable, the gravity slightly less than Earth standard. The entrance is concealed, Thera explained, leading them toward what appeared to be an ordinary rock formation. Vexilian technology is designed to integrate seamlessly with natural environments. Upon reaching the formation, Thera placed her palm against a specific configuration of crystals embedded in the stone. The ground beneath them shimmered and became transparent, revealing a descending pathway into the moon's interior. The outpost within was a marvel of bioorganic architecture, structures that seemed to grow naturally from the surrounding rock, pulsing with the same luminescence as Thera's skin. Advanced technology was integrated so seamlessly with the environment that it was often difficult to distinguish where natural formations ended and technological constructs began. The defense system is this way, Thera guided them through winding corridors to a central chamber dominated by a crystalline console. As she interfaced with the ancient technology, Dominic received an urgent communication from the Odyssey. Captain, Lieutenant Cassidy's voice crackled through his communicator, the hegemony forces are advancing on our position. They'll reach the ship in minutes. Thera worked quickly, her hands dancing across the crystal interface. The system requires time to fully activate. It was designed to remain dormant for centuries without degrading. Outside, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The Odyssey's remaining crew had established a defensive perimeter, but they were outmatched by the hegemony's advanced weaponry. Casualty reports began coming in, each one weighing heavily on Dominic's conscience. We need another option, he insisted. My crew is dying out there. Thera hesitated, then made a decision. There is one alternative. The outpost contains a direct neural interface designed for Vexilian consciousness. Through it, I can manually activate the defense systems, but the process requires channeling massive amounts of energy through my consciousness. It is, not without risk. What kind of risk? Dominic demanded. Neural overload. Possibly fatal. Her crystalline eyes met his. There is no other way to save your crew in time. Before Dominic could protest, Thera had already connected herself to the interface, a crystalline structure that enveloped her form in pulsating energy. Her body arched in apparent pain as the connection established, her consciousness expanding to encompass the entire defense network. Through their bond, Dominic felt echoes of what she was experiencing, the overwhelming flood of data, the struggle to direct immense energies with precision, the mounting pressure threatening to shatter her mind completely. Acting on instinct rather than reason, he reached for her hand, establishing physical contact with her illuminated form. The moment their skin touched, their bond flared into something transcendent, a complete melding of consciousnesses that distributed the neural load between them. Together, they became the defense system. Through shared perception, they targeted the hegemony forces with precision, disabling their weapons and communications without inflicting casualties. The lunar surface lit up with pulses of energy that rendered the invaders harmless, frozen in stasis fields until they could be properly contained. When it was over, Dominic and Thera collapsed together, their minds still intimately entwined. What they had shared went beyond anything either species had documented, a complete union of consciousness that had forever altered them both. "You could have died," Thera's voice resonated in his mind, stronger and clearer than ever before. "So could you," he responded, not bothering to speak aloud. Their communication had evolved beyond such limitations. "I couldn't let you face that alone." In the days that followed, as the Odyssey's crew repaired their ship using Vexilian technology and prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Earth Command, Dominic and Thera explored the depth of their new connection. They discovered they could communicate across vast distances, share sensory experiences, even access each other's memories with unprecedented clarity. More significantly, Thera discovered that the combination of their consciousnesses had unlocked previously inaccessible sections of the Outpost's database, including detailed protocols for safely activating the seed vault and beginning the restoration of her species. It was never meant to be done by a single Vexilian, Dominic realized as they studied the ancient information together. The process was designed to require a bonded pair. "Yes," Thera confirmed. "My people believe that new life should only emerge from connection and unity, never from isolation. This is why I could not have succeeded alone." The arrival of the UES Valiant came sooner than expected. Admiral Zhou, rather than sending an armed boarding party, requested permission to come aboard the Odyssey with a small diplomatic team, a surprising development that Dominic cautiously accepted.